YouTube, what is up? What a first round we just experienced. I am thrilled to bring my final grades for each pick that we saw last night to you in this video. A few notes before we do hop in here though. First off, thank you so much to everyone who joined me live here on YouTube last night for the draft. It was an absolute blast reacting to the picks with all you folks. I hope you do choose to join me again here tonight. It'll be on Twitch also tomorrow for the reactions of rounds 2 through 7. It's going to be a blast, so please do join me on Twitch. And then as far as this video is concerned, I always end up getting some negative feedback on these draft grade videos, and I feel the need to preface what these grades are all about. Typically, a lot of people come in here, watch the video, and then proceed to inform me that it's pointless to give grades to these picks because we have no idea how these players will turn out. And I'm just like, why are you here then? Like that's like going to a Super Bowl preview show and saying it's pointless to talk about the Super Bowl because you don't know who's going to win. Look, you aren't wrong. It's virtually impossible to know for sure which of all of these picks are going to be good or bad. But analysis and predictive thought is one of the many beauties of all of sports, and the draft is no different. And it's my job as a draft analyst, as someone who's spent countless hours leading up to this moment analyzing players, scheme fits, historical draft data, watching film, attending the Senior Bowl, to tell you what picks I believe were good or bad decisions. You would be just straight wrong to say that GMs always know what they're doing and don't make mistakes that weren't predictable mistakes. I have the utmost confidence in my evaluations, my process, and also believe my feedback on last year's draft speaks for itself as well. So let's hop in here. Keep in mind, guys, I'm recording this at 4 in the morning here in Minneapolis, so please forgive me for any slips or typos as we go. It just might happen, we'll see. And as always, guys, please do hit that like button down below. It actually helps share my content, grow my channel more than you know. It is the easiest way to support my channel right there. So let's hop in. Joe Burrow with the first pick, going to get an A. He is one of the better quarterbacks to come out in a while. I think does bring a very high floor, is ready to go right away. A confident processor, is extremely accurate. His play extension, that it factor, the ability to sense pressure, play out of rhythm, I think is going to play nicely in Cincinnati, where they are lacking a bit of an offensive line right now. I think first pick in the second round, there's a lot of good offensive tackles there that I think they'd be making a mistake not to go with to help out Joe Burrow, but that's a different pick grade to give in the future. Joe Burrow here is going to get an A. And then Chase Young also going to get an A for the Washington Redskins, the best player in this draft class, pound for pound. Obviously, that quarterback position gives Burrow the nod. Chase Young comes in with an incredibly high floor. Worst case, he's going to be like a Jadeveon Clowney, who's a good, not great pass rusher and an exceptional run defender. I do think he needs to refine his pass rush approach, some of the counter moves that he's going to need to really develop and show at the next level if he wants to be an elite pass rusher, but the athleticism, the get off, the explosiveness, the length, it's all there. There is really nothing stopping Chase Young from being a top 10 player in the NFL someday, but himself. Then the third pick, the Detroit Lions stayed put. I thought we were going to see a trade here for Tua. They stay in there and take Jeffrey Okudah. Number 1 corner on my board and most people out there, though CJ Henderson was starting to get some late buzz there for CBU1. Okudah, an obvious scheme fit though. He presses and runs man coverage at an exceptional level coming out of college. He does not have that elite athleticism that you typically look for in a true number 1 corner, but it's not that he's some bad athlete. He's still cleared the 4 or 5 cornerback threshold that I have for these guys. So I really think he comes in with a very high floor. If you look at this team's salary situation, they did bring in Trufant, but they needed that kind of long-term number 1 corner here. Matt Patricia trying to replicate the Belichickian defense here with putting a lot of priority on the cornerback position, specifically corners that can run man coverage, something we also saw with Miami, who's a Belichickian team that we'll talk about later in this draft. Then the New York Giants. This was my first kind of win here as far as some of my takes. You know, one of my takes this draft season was Andrew Thomas as offensive tackle 1, and to a lot of people's surprise, he is the first offensive tackle off the board. No, it does not necessarily mean he will be the best offensive tackle, but I think he was getting a ton of disrespect for no good reason. He was the guy coming into the year that was offensive tackle 1 from the get-go. And then we get guys like Becton, Wills, and Wirfs emerging, showing rare athletic traits. But Thomas is the guy that was there from day 1 as a freshman, consistently developing, kicking ass, taking names in the SEC. The one weakness he has that I actually really credit to Georgia was his kick slide technique was kind of ugly, but they did not ask him to do that consistently. He is a high character guy. With his athleticism and technique at every other element of his game, I am confident that an NFL coach can get better kick slide technique out of him, and he will be a really, really nice offensive tackle for a long time. This is actually a really good pick here by Dave Gettleman and the Giants. I think he'll play at left, and they will move Nate Solder to right tackle, similar to what the Raiders did with Colton Miller when they drafted him in the first round several years ago. Then Tua, the 5th pick here, is going to get a B- from me. It's been very clear. I'm personally just not so high on Tua. He was actually my number 3 quarterback in this class behind Jordyn Love. And it's not just the injury concerns that I think are very real. I think there are worries that I saw on tape that you can see here in this graphic. He really shut down in the red zone, showed some mental mistakes. I think the velocity on his deep ball, some of his technique, there's some worries about that deep ball. Even though he is very accurate in the rest of the parts of his game, he is a sharp processor. He is an excellent ball handler. He almost looks like a point guard at times, which really played nicely when he had one of the best surrounding cores in the history of college football, if not the objectively best surrounding core. Like, it was just ridiculous the help he had to work with, which is another knock I have on Tua. So I think he's a really good quarterback prospect, and if it weren't for the injury concerns, he would get a slight nod over Jordyn Love. But if I look at Tua as this higher floor, lower ceiling type of player on film compared to Jordyn Love, and then that floor is cut out from underneath Tua because of all the injury stuff, that is what pushes Jordyn Love up above Tua, although it is pretty close. So I do give them a B-. This is their guy. This is not like Daniel Jones last year. This is not like the next pick that we're going to talk about here. I think Tua can be a very good football player. I think if he stays healthy, he will be something like a Jimmy Garoppolo, a Baker Mayfield, a Ryan Tannehill, somewhere in that 10 to 20 range, depending on the season, depending on the help he gets. But that's a pretty big caveat if he can stay healthy. And then we have Justin Herbert at 6. This one's going to get a D from me. I think he screams bust. I'm not the only one that feels this way. The lack of development over a 3-year stretch, he's basically the same player, really indicates a lack of drive, a lack of not just playmaking instincts, but just a love for the game. Where's the growth? Accuracy is sporadic. He is just a sporadic player. If his first read is not there, he's kind of like Mitch Trubisky, where you just don't know what he's going to do if that first read gets covered up. He could make a great throw on the run that looks beautiful, but then the next play, that first read gets covered up, and he just chucks it straight at the safety. This, to me, is Mitch Trubisky, Blake Bortles, Jake Locker, Blaine Gabbert, Paxton Lynch, all over again, drafting the tall, strong-armed quarterback for no good reason other than the fact that he threw the ball well against air at the Senior Bowl and at the Combine. I hope I'm wrong. I know a lot of Chargers fans that are just really hurting with this pick. I hope he proves me wrong. I think best case you're getting a Ryan Tannehill, a Jared Goff. I just don't understand this pick at all based on my own evaluation, so it's going to get a D. I actually have a lower grade on Justin Herbert than I did on Daniel Jones, who went 6 last year. I had a 2nd to a 3rd round grade on Herbert, where I had a 2nd on Jones. Then Derek Brown to the Panthers. This one gets a C-. This reminds me a lot of the Christian Wilkins pick to Miami last year, which was the first pick in their regime. It's just a safe, conservative call. He is a very high floor player. He's just not an explosive pass rusher. I actually had Javon Kinlaw ahead of Derek Brown on my board. So they're getting that foundational piece on the interior of that defense. I just think in the modern NFL, a pick like Isaiah Simmons, even a CJ Henderson, an offensive tackle, a wide receiver, there's so many more aspects that with the 7th pick in a really talented spot, like there's really good players here, to walk out of that with Derek Brown at number 7, it's just a little underwhelming. He's going to be a really good player. I just don't get very fired up about that pick. Then Isaiah Simmons, Hard to bash this pick because he is the third best player in this class, but considering the Cardinals don't have a second round pick, I think this team would actually benefit more from getting a Jedrick Wills, even a Mekhi Becton, a Tristan Wirfs, an offensive tackle to come in here and be Kyler Murray's franchise tackle. I think that's the smarter approach. This team is getting dangerously close to being another finesse team that generates a lot of hype, who ultimately can't compete in the trenches. And I think getting that vertical element in this passing game is ultimately going to be more beneficial than getting another athletic defender in the second level of this coverage unit. You already have Budda Baker there and Jordan Hicks. Not that Simmons is a bad pick. I'm giving him a B+. He is an extraordinary player. They're going to be able to do some really nice things in coverage. But I have some serious doubts about if and how they're going to beef up this team and add some of that manliness and girth that is still required to play football, even though the game has changed. Then we have CJ Henderson. This was an ideal landing spot. He is an excellent scheme fit, played that same cover 3 press scheme that they're going to play here in Jacksonville. They needed the replacement, not just for Jalen Ramsey, but AJ Bouye, who they traded away. In this scheme, CJ Henderson can be a top-notch corner, and I think it's an excellent fit, so I went with an A, and good value as well. Jedrick Wills to the Browns. This one was easy. Left tackle, one of a few gaping holes left on this roster. We've been saying this whole time, it's not a matter of what position the Browns take at 10, it's what tackle do they take. Well, Jedrick Wills, clearly they get their guy. I don't think any team ran that card in or sent that email in or that text in faster than the Browns did for Jedrick Wills. Just a great pick, and that offensive line is all of a sudden one of the best. Could still use a right guard in there, though. Then Mekhi Becton went to the Jets, and this actually gets a better grade than I think a lot of people are going to expect, a B+. Becton did ultimately come up to being my 4th tackle, just surpassing Matt Peart. Really where I was against Mekhi Becton this entire time, if you go back and listen to, was as a top 10 pick, ahead of Jedrick Wills and Andrew Thomas specifically. To take him ahead of Tristan Wirfs is not consistent with my evaluations, but I understand it. He is a true left tackle for Sam Darnold. His upside is truly remarkable. So I understand why they preferred Becton to Wirfs. I don't even necessarily disagree with it. My only thing with Becton is he is still very raw. His run block technique just bothers me how kind of almost lazy it is at times, just trying to casually throw guys to the side, which sometimes it works and results in highlights, other times it just doesn't. And it's just blitz recognition, spatial awareness, gives up the inside too often. He's got a long way to go as far as his development, but the sky is the limit for Mekhi Becton. So a B+. Then Henry Ruggs. Look, I get it. You want your Tyreek Hill. You play in that AFC West. Derek Carr, in theory, is a good deep ball quarterback, but this only gets a B. It's good value. I had been kind of hinting that Ruggs could be the first wide receiver off the board, so that's all fine. Like taking him over guys like Jeudy or CeeDee Lamb, I'm not totally against that. It's just this idea that Derek Carr is all of a sudden going to go from, what, 4 or 5 straight years of being a check down machine and being dead last in the league in depth of target to just unloading and being aggressive with Henry Ruggs using the 12th pick on that. I don't really like that. And I think CeeDee Lamb with his explosive ball skills would have been a much better fit, and I have a higher grade on CeeDee Lamb. So I'm not going to destroy this pick. Maybe you do unlock Derek Carr here, but ultimately I think you're kind of wasting a little bit of value there with Ruggs' deep ball, considering Derek Carr just like doesn't really look deep. And maybe he proves me wrong, but he's been proving me right for about 4 years now. Tristan Wirfs to the Bucs. They moved up a spot. Great move by the Niners to get another pick in there. Simply put, this is an A+. They need a right tackle. They're in a win now mode with Tom Brady. And there you go. Tristan Wirfs, a top 10 player in this class. You barely have to give up anything to get him. And that offense is pretty much complete there. So boom, A+. Then Javon Kinlaw. This is my absolute best call of this draft. And I am going to ring my own bell here. A total I told you so moment. I don't know when the Niners fans are just going to stop yelling at me and listen when I talk about the Niners, because about 16 months ago I said they were a great sleeper pick to win the Super Bowl. They go on and get to the Super Bowl after winning 2 games the year before. And then here in draft season, I go on talking about how this offense operates over the middle of the field, how Shanahan is not going to value guys like CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Jeudy because those perimeter receivers don't matter so much to him. He'd rather have speed in the slot that he can scheme open off of play action. Jimmy Garoppolo as well, not a great boundary ball thrower. So the other thing I said here is that Javon Kinlaw is their guy. Niners fans hated this, and I don't know why. They think that Solomon Thomas and DJ Jones and Eric Armstead, who's only plays interior defensive line on obvious pass rush downs, we're gonna replace what you had in DeForest Buckner. I mean, come on, no one's afraid of those guys. The only reason they had to move on from Buckner is he wanted a new deal and you couldn't afford him. You can't pay everybody. So the reason they made this move was to get Javon Kinlaw all along. That's what I've been saying since they made the trade. Niners fans have been coming at me. So, I mean, I hate to say I told you so, although I really don't hate to say I told you so after some of the words you guys have thrown my way. So, sorry Niners fans, I was right, but this is a great fit. It's a great pick for you. He's going to be an instant impact on the interior. He's going to offer you 85-90% of what you had in DeForest Buckner and allow Bosa and Armstead and Ford to get those one-on-ones that were so valuable last year, because you can't consistently single-team Javon Kinlaw. You just can't. Whereas you can with DJ Jones and Solomon Thomas and even Arik Armstead. I'm not too afraid in a pass rushing situation. Then Jerry Jeudy, this one gets an A+. He's a top 10 player, my #1 wide receiver. He's also the perfect fit here for the Denver Broncos. That elite separation, be that guy that can get open early and often for Drew Lock, make those reads even easier, and he can be a deep threat here. The other thing is, if he has a weakness, it's his ball skills. He's not like a big contested catch guy, but they've got Courtland Sutton there, so they're going to play excellent off each other. You got Noah Fant in the slot. This receiving core is really shaping up nice. Then A.J. Terrell to the Falcons. I get what they see here. He's a lengthy, competitive, scrappy, smart corner who's going to plug right in there and start day one in this cover 3 Seattle scheme. I did think there was other players that were better fits for that. Jalen Johnson, Trayvon Diggs. I thought this was a bit of a reach, but I get what they see. I'm going to go the B- here for Terrell. A bit of a high floor, lower ceiling pick at their biggest need, which was corner. Then the Dallas Cowboys, kind of a surprising pick, grabbing CeeDee Lamb. Definitely going with the take the best player available approach here. The reason this gets a B is I have spent a lot of time talking about the problems that this team is going to be facing in the secondary. Not just immediately, like they still have a pretty big problem with their #2 corner. Maybe they can address that in the second round, but contractually, 4 of their 5 starters are up for free agency in 2021. They've already paid a ton of guys here. I thought they had to go secondary here. They could have gotten the guy I've been mocking there in Christian Fulton. They take CeeDee Lamb, which I'm giving it a B. I mean, he's what, the 7th player, the 8th player on my board, my #2 wide receiver. He's awesome. They're giving Dak yet another weapon. I mean, we've seen what Dak looks like without a lot of help, and it's not pretty, so keep giving him help. But this kind of actually is a negative on a guy like Michael Gallup, who's probably going to be the odd man out here. I don't think Cooper, Gallup, or Lamb are true slot wide receivers. I actually thought Justin Jefferson might have been the pick over Lamb here to play in the slot here if they went wide receiver. Look, Lamb's a great player. This probably allows you an out for Michael Gallup, who needs to get paid after next year. I just think it might be a slightly irresponsible pick as far as being a team that has put themselves in a spot where they need to start getting a little more conservative with their team building decisions. And I also don't know how much of an upgrade this is. I think Lamb, with his ball skills and explosive leaping ability, is actually kind of similar to Michael Gallup. So I like adding the talent. It's an exciting pick. I mean, talk about a receiving core, but it just was a bit of a head scratcher in a lot of different ways. Then Austin Jackson, gonna get a B+ here. I don't mind this fit. He's a really high character, raw athlete at tackle. The Miami Dolphins just need offensive linemen. They need more. I like Austin Jackson. He's probably not going to be a great impact right away if you end up starting Tua on day one. I don't know how well that's going to fare for these injury concerns that we've talked about. Definitely got to keep addressing offensive line as they move forward. But Austin Jackson, in theory, can develop into a franchise left tackle here. Then we have the worst pick in the first round by an absolute country mile, Damon Arnette, my 14th corner on my board. Virtually no upside with this pick, and of course it is John Gruden, Mike Mayock, and these Oakland Raiders, Las Vegas Raiders now, that we obliterated last year. And I started complimenting them for some of these free agent moves. They've done some nice things. But what the hell was this? Did they not learn from last year? Like, at some point, you got to stop taking these super conservative picks. And I get Ruggs was a little more aggressive, but I mean, my God, last year, you had 3 first-round picks. You took Clelin Ferrell, who's closer to a second-round prospect than a top-5 prospect for sure, with the 4th overall pick. You took a running back, sweet, good for you, and a box safety. Now, with the 4th pick in 5 first-round picks, you're taking a high floor, low upside, competitive Gruden grinder type of corner. What the hell is this? I don't understand this pick. I got a good laugh out of ESPN trying to defend this thing. This is why I tell people to follow me, because I'm going to be honest, dude. This was an absolute miserable pick. They've done some nice things there, but I mean, come on. There is virtually no world where this is a better pick than Noah Igbinoghene, Trayvon Diggs, Jaylon Johnson, Jeff Gladney. I mean, he's your 4th string corner. I don't think he's going to win. I don't think he's going to win a starting job. He's a man cover corner who lacks zone instincts, who can't run fast. He's just not going to be a good player. I'm sorry. Then we got Chaisson to the Jags, a seamless replacement for Yannick Ngakoue, who's inevitably on the way out here. I gave this one an A. It's a great value. They know how to scheme up a guy just like this. Between him and Josh Allen, that could be a very scary edge rush duo down the road. I think both guys definitely a year or two away from being that elite impact, but that's a lot of burst and athleticism and effort to handle between Chaisson and Josh Allen. So I did like that pick. I think that the Jags really did what I thought they should in this draft, and that's get back to what they do on the defensive side of the ball and figure out that offense as the year goes on. Then Jalen Reagor, a surprise pick to the Philadelphia Eagles. Everyone thought this was Justin Jefferson landing in their lap. They go with the aggressive, speedy Jalen Reagor, who I've been very hard on in this draft process. I will say it's a decent spot for him to come in and learn. I did give it a C-. There's some upside involved here. Personally, I think he's a kick returner that needs to learn how to run routes and have better hands. Now, Deshaun Jackson is about as good of a mentor for a Jalen Reagor as I can imagine, but for a team that's so ready to win right now, to take this player instead of Justin Jefferson, who is refined as a route runner, just a high IQ guy that is a very high floor player with a decent ceiling as well, I can't really justify this one for the Eagles. I think there's a chance that Reagor with Wentz and this coaching staff could actually get utilized pretty well and turn into something. But I just don't believe in the player nearly as much as Justin Jefferson, who lands to the Vikings here at 22, getting an A+. He is going to play outside wide receiver, and they're 2 wide receiver sets. He can play in the slot. Adam Thielen's actually not a terrible comparison for Justin Jefferson. Those ball skills, the ability to attack the football, something Kirk Cousins really wanted with Stefon Diggs leaving. So you're really filling probably the biggest need here. They land it at 22. You are trading Stefon Diggs for Justin Jefferson basically straight up, but Diggs wanted out anyway. So to be able to get Justin Jefferson for that pick, I don't know if they expected to be able to do that. Maybe they can thank the Philadelphia Eagles for it. Then we had a trade up, the Chargers coming up for Kenneth Murray. This one was just fine. It was great value. I like Kenneth Murray. This is about where I thought he should have gone. I thought he was starting to slip a little bit, and the Chargers a little bit of an aggressive move to come up. My problem with this is they gave up a 2nd and 3rd round pick. You draft Herbert. You still have gaping holes at offensive tackle, and you just surrendered the opportunity to put better line play and future wide receivers in place for Justin Herbert. So I just didn't think it was necessary. They have some bodies at linebacker. It's not like it was a gaping hole. You got Perriman, Kaiser White. There's some depth in this class. So I just wasn't crazy about this, but I definitely didn't hate it. Cesar Ruiz to the Saints, getting an A-. This was an interesting pick. This was actually some foresight from the Saints. Now, if you're going to draft for the future, I don't know why you don't go Jordan Love, but that's a different story. I mean, this is going to be the best offensive line in football next year, I think by a pretty wide margin. I mean, the 1 weak link they had was Andrews Pete. Cesar Ruiz is going to play left guard. Your right guard also up for a new contract after this year. So a win now move that also plans for the future, but I liked this pick. I gave it an A-. Then Brandon Ayuk to the Niners. I had an I told you so show about 10 minutes ago with the Niners. This is the type of receiver that Shanahan wants. Clearly, they traded up to get him. A slot type of guy that can run those deep crossing routes. I coined this on the stream. It's going to be a TFG special, I think, moving forward. Double Debos here. You know, that Debo Samuel route, the deep over coming off of play action is a staple of this scheme. And now they are going to force teams to cover Ayuk and Debo Samuel. So I was not particularly high on Brandon Ayuk, but one thing that I think he can do is run in this Kyle Shanahan scheme. So I do like it. I think it was a reach to trade up to do it. I don't love it. I think Laviska Shenault could have done the same thing. So I think they got a little bit too excited to come up and get their guy. I think they could have just stayed put. But as much of a reach as I think this is, and as much as I don't like Ayuk's skill set, to put him in a scheme where they are going to scheme him open, which I think is something they needed, it is a great landing spot. So I will say that, as much of a reach as I thought it was, and they traded up for it, he gets a C. And then we got the Jordyn Love to the Packers. I mean, if you have been watching my videos for the last 4 months, you're not going to be surprised that I'm going to give this an A+. I had Jordyn Love as a top 12 player in this class, my number 2 quarterback. The upside is incredible, but I agree. I think he needs to go to a spot like a Green Bay where he can sit and develop to reach that upside. This really screams Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes. I don't know if Jordyn Love will reach those heights, but I really think the sky is the limit. This does a lot of other things that aren't being discussed. This lights a fire under Aaron Rodgers' ass. I do think he will handle this well. Of course, Twitter comes out and is like, oh, how pissed is Aaron Rodgers? You know, he's talked about this. He'll embrace it. I honestly think it's a little bit of a kick in the butt that he needs. And the other thing with Rodgers is he hasn't been the most reliable guy in as far as health. So if he goes down, this Packers team's ready to win right now. Having a backup quarterback like Jordyn Love is almost as important as drafting a backup tackle that they probably were going to do at 30 anyway. So this was one of my favorite picks in the entire draft, if not my most favorite. And I think NFC North fans saw this and were like, are you freaking kidding me? We had Favre for a decade and a half, we had Rodgers for a decade and a half, and now we're going to have to deal with Jordyn Love most likely. Like, when is this going to end? So that pick just really resonated with me. Then the Jordyn Brooks pick to the Steelers, just a reach, basically from anyone you ask. They also drafted a lot of linebackers that I liked last year, so I didn't necessarily understand that. This Seahawks team just kind of beats to their own drum. Now, Jordyn Brooks is a good athlete. I compared him to Zach Brown. He flies to the ball, but doesn't have the best IQ or coverage instincts. He will sit and develop, and maybe will take over for KJ Wright as that big-bodied outside linebacker in a year or two. I can actually see this working out. I just didn't really understand the need to do this right here, especially to pass on offensive line yet again. You're going to have Russell running for his life with a Josh Jones sitting right there, with a Matt Pert sitting right there, Isaiah Wilson sitting right there. I didn't quite get behind that, or even an edge player, an Yetur Gross-Matos. So I think you're passing up on some real talent to take a Jordyn Brooks. Even if he turns into a good player, it just felt really unnecessary. Then the Patrick Queen pick, this was an automatic A+. I mean, he's top 20-ish player in this class, a huge need for the Ravens. He also, I think, is kind of the linebacker version of Jordyn Love. Not necessarily that he needs to sit right away, but I wanted to see him get in a good spot with a good coaching staff to really improve his instincts, improve his tackling, and that's going to be Baltimore. They are going to coach this guy up. He, I think, is going to have a Deion Jones-esque impact on this coverage unit that just gets better and better. So look out for that Ravens defense next year with Patrick Queen in the middle. Then the Isaiah Wilson pick. This guy was really climbing up fast for me towards the end. Just the athletic profile here. And another kind of win for me. something I've kind of announced throughout this week. I haven't heard anyone else that did this, so I'm going to kind of ring my own bell here again. I moved Isaiah Wilson to guard on my board, and he was the #1 guard on my board, and the Titans announced this pick as a guard. I look at that roster, it makes sense that he would start at guard, but he is an excellent fit here. We know the Titans want to run the ball. That right side of that offensive line is a train wreck right now. Nate Davis was not good. Dennis Kelly got a contract extension there, but to replace Jack Conklin, I don't know if he's the long-term answer. So Isaiah Wilson is going to come in, compete on the right side of the line. He will get a starting job, whether it's right tackle or right guard. I think it will be at right guard, where he can pave the way for Derrick Henry and that nice run game. Then Noah Igbinoghene to the Miami Dolphins. If it couldn't be any more clear that these Belichickian coaches want man cover corners, here you go. Noah Igbinoghene is a really good man corner, does lack some of that football IQ, the zone coverage stuff. He's a raw guy, converted from wide receiver, but his movement skills are exceptional. Ironically, my comparison for him is J.C. Jackson, who Brian Flores coached up in New England, played a lot of slot corner earlier on, which Noah Igbinoghene is going to be doing here in Miami. So it's an interesting fit. I mean, we've talked about this offensive line. You could have gone with a much more impactful player at free safety in Antoine Winfield, a great scheme fit in AJ Epinesa. I wasn't crazy about this pick. I didn't really see the point for it. A little overkill at the corner position after you just signed Byron Jones, but I understand it. That is the philosophy here, and he will probably start in the slot. So not the end of the world, just not what I would have done. Then Jeff Gladney to the Vikings, great fit. I think it makes a ton of sense for Zimmer to want a 23-year-old corner. He can run man, he's really smart in zone coverage, has good route recognition. So Zimmer, a coach that clearly needs corners here, but has historically not played rookie corners. If he's going to play anyone in this class, it's probably Jeff Gladney, who has a ton of starting experience. Definitely could have come out last year if he wanted to, but I like this pick a lot. Great value. He was actually my number 31 player on my draft board. And then the final pick here, Clyde Edwards-Helaire to the Kansas City Chiefs. I am okay drafting a running back in the first round if you don't have gaping holes on your roster and if cap space is becoming an issue. And Kansas City has like $800 in cap space. You know, you do kind of need to pay a running back something, right? A first round running back is going to get a nice 5-year contract on the cheap. Clyde Edwards-Helaire in this system is going to be Kareem Hunt. He's going to be a top 10 running back in the league most likely. It's a slam dunk, high floor pick. I like this pick. I gave it an A-. I think Christian Fulton might have been a little bit of a better option for this team. You could probably still go running back in the second round. I also don't know if Clyde Edwards-Helaire is better than DeAndre Swift. He certainly wasn't on my board. But all in all, I think it's a very good pick, and he's going to make a pretty nice impact on this team, get that run game going a little bit more, and he is so good after the catch on screens and checkdowns from Mahomes. So there are your first round NFL draft grades. Drop a comment down below what you think. I'll see you guys on Twitch tonight. Cheers as always, and we'll see you for the next one. Peace.